It's the OCR GCSE Maths Higher Tier Calculator Paper 4 from November 2023. Let's get straight into it. Question 1. The price of a phone increases from £240 to £262.80. Calculate the percentage increase in the price of the phone. To work out percentage increase, we need the change divided by the original multiplied by 100. Here, the change will be £262.80, take away 240, divided by the original, which is 240. That would just leave me with £22.80 over 240. £22.80 divided by 240 multiplied by 100, which gives me 9.5%. Question 2. A prime number is a whole number that has exactly two factors. Explain why 1 is not a prime number. What are your factors of 1? It only has one factor. 1 only has one factor, so is not a prime. Part B. A and B are prime numbers. Write down the 6 factors of a squared b. Let's just imagine these as 2 prime numbers. I'm going to call this one 2 and I'm going to call this one 3 because those are the 2 smallest prime numbers. What would a squared b be? 2 times 2 is 4 and 4 times 3 is 12. So we're going to look at all of the factors of 12 and think about how they relate to a and b. Factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4, and that would be all of them. So the first factor is always going to be 1, and the last factor will always be a squared b. For the next one, 2 is the same as a, 6 is the same as a times by b, 3 is the same as b, and 4 is the same as a squared. Question 3. The table shows the results for a sport club's A team. That's the win, draw, lose, and the total. Complete a label pie chart to show these results. Let's first think about what angles we need here. So in a pie chart, all of the angles would add up to 360. So the total would be 360. And I can see quite nicely that 40 multiplies by 9 to give me 360. So an easy way to do this, just multiply all of these by 9. So times in 12 by 9 gives me 108, 10 times by 9 gives me 90, and 18 times by 9 is 162. I'm going to draw all of these on. I think I would draw this 90 degrees on first because it's easier. That would be my 90 degrees one, or my draw. Use a protractor for this. The next one, I need to do 108. Would look something like this. So that one is lose, and the last one will be win. The way you can check this, after you've done the first 2, you can measure the last angle, and it should be 162. And if you don't get 162, that means your first 2 were wrong. Part B. Here are the results for sports clubs B team and C team. That's the B and that's the C team. The C team manager says the pie charts show that the C team won more games than the B team. Referring to the pie charts, explain why the C team manager may not be correct. When we take a look at these pie charts, we can't see how many games they played in total. So we can't see how many games they won, how many games they lost. So we can say the total amount of games played is not given. Question 4. The graph shows Taylor's journey from home to an airport. During the journey, Taylor stops for petrol. So this is a distance time graph because I've got distance on my y-axis and time on my x-axis. For how long did Taylor stop for petrol? When can we see Taylor stops? For the start of the journey, he's moving, and at this point, he stops because the distance that he's away from home doesn't change. So it's at 20 minutes when he stops. And how many minutes are there between there and there? So there's 5 gaps between 20 and 30, so each gap is worth 2. That'd be 22, that'd be 24. So it's going to be 4 minutes. Part B, Taylor drives the same route back home from the airport at an average speed of 45 kilometers per hour. Taylor leaves the airport at 10 p.m. Work out the time when Taylor arrives home. We need to first figure out how far is the airport away from home. If we read it off here, I can see I've got 50 and that would be 48. So it's 48 kilometers away from home. We're going to be needing our distance, speed, time formula here, and we're working out time because we're trying to figure out how long it takes. So time is equal to distance divided by speed. And here the distance is 48 and the speed is 45. And this is going to give me it in hours. So I'm doing 48 divided by 45 and then I'm multiplying that by 60 to tell me in minutes. So it would be 64 minutes. If he's leaving at 10 p.m, we need to add 1 hour and 4 minutes. So that means he's arriving back home at 23:04. Question 5. Write an expression for the weight in grams of an object weighing X kilograms. So if something weighs 1 kilogram, how would you change it into grams? We would need to multiply it by 1000. So the weight would be 1000 X if we want to change it into grams. Part B. Write an expression for the area in meter squared of a garden of area y centimeter squared. So right now the area is in centimeter squared and we need to convert it into meter squared. If we're converting from centimeters to meters, we need to divide by 100. But if it's centimeter squared to meter squared, it needs to be divided by 100 squared. So we're doing y over 100 squared, which is the same as 100 with 2 more zeros. Question 6. 2 kilograms of carrots and 5 kilograms of potatoes cost £6.36. So I've decided to write that as an equation because I can see what type of question this is already going to be. 3 kilograms of carrots plus 2 kilograms of potatoes equal £5.25. Find the cost of 1 kilogram of carrots and the cost of 1 kilogram of potatoes. So we're trying to find one lot of C and one lot of P. We've got simultaneous equations. We're going to scale both of these up so that we have a common number before either the C or the P. I'm going to choose to make the C's the same because I think it'll be a little bit easier. To do that, I'm going to multiply this top one by 3, so that becomes 6C, and I'll multiply this bottom one by 2, so that will also become 6C. So let's multiply those. So 2C times by 3 gives me 6C. 5p times by 3 gives me 15p. 636 times by 3 gives me £19.08. 3c times by 2 is 6c. 2p times by 2 is 4p. £5.25 times by 2 is £10.50. Because we have a common coefficient before the c's, we can take these away from each other, and we're taking away the bottom one from the top one. So 6c take away 6c, that will cancel out. 15 take away 4, which leaves me with 11p, is equal to £19.08 take away £10.50, which is £8.58. Solving this equation, dividing both sides by 11, divide that by 11, gives me £0.78p. So the potatoes are 78p. Because we have the value of the potatoes, we can find the value of the carrots. So let's substitute p into the first equation. I've got 2c plus 5 lots of p, so 0.78 is equal to £6.36. I'll just substitute it into there. 2c, 5 times 0.78 gives me £3.90 is equal to £6.36. Take away this 3.9 first. So 2c is equal to £6.36, take away £3.9, which is £2.46. Divide both sides by 2, so I'm left with c is equal to £1.23. So the cost of the carrots is £1.23, and the cost of the potatoes is 78p, so 0.78. If you wanted to check this, you could substitute both of these back into here, and you should get £6.36 or £5.25. Question 7. Find all the possible integer values that satisfy the inequality, and that's the inequality that we're trying to satisfy. Integer just means whole numbers, so we need to solve both of these inequalities. I'm going to treat this part of the inequality as one inequality, and then I'm going to treat this side as another inequality. So let's write both of those out. I've got negative 10 is less than 3x plus 2. And then for the other one, I've got 3x plus 2 is less than or equal to 8. I need to solve both of these. Let's solve this one first. So I'm going to move this plus 2 over to the other side. So taking away 2 from both sides. That leaves me with minus 12 is less than 3x. Divide by 3 on both sides. So negative 4 is less than x. That's my first one done. Let's sort this one out now. So x is being multiplied by 3 and then add in 2. So we take away the 2 first. 8 take away 2 is 6. So 3x is less than or equal to 6. Divide by 3 on both sides. X is less than or equal to 2. So let's write what the numbers would be for both of these. This is x is greater than negative 4. So the next number that would be possible would be negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Here it's saying x is less than or equal to 2. So I would need to get rid of that one. And these would be all of my answers. Negative 3 up to 2. Question 8. Here are sketches of 6 graphs labelled A to F. Write the letter of the graph that represents the following relationships. Y is directly proportional to x. If it's directly proportional, I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for both of them to be increasing at the same time and it to go through the origin. It needs to go through 0. So which of these is correct? That would be C. Part B, y is inversely proportional to x. For this one, I'm looking for one thing increasing and the other one decreasing. So this one would be E. Question 9. Here are two pieces of work. Each shows a question and an incorrect solution. For each part, describe the error made and write out correct solution. So I'm just going to solve this. I'm looking for two numbers to multiply to make negative 20, and they need to multiply to make the coefficient of this x. So that's going to be 1. You need to add to make 1. Let's write out the factors of negative 20. I've got 1 and negative 20, and negative 1 and 20. Then I have 2 and negative 10, and then negative 2 and 10, and 4 and negative 5, and negative 4 and 5. Which of these would add up to make 1? So it's going to be that one, negative 4 and 5. And if I take a look at the solution that they gave, the signs are in the wrong order. So it should have been x minus 4 and x plus 5. The error is they had the signs mixed up. Part B, solve this equation. So let's just solve it. I've got 4x plus 5 is equal to x plus 2. First, I want to move all my x's to one side. So I'm going to take away x from both sides. So I've got 3x plus 5 is equal to 2. Let's take away this 5 from both sides. So 3x is equal to 2 take away 5 is negative 3. Now I need to divide by 3 on both sides. X is equal to negative 1, and they got 1. So let's look at their solution. They got 4x plus 5 equals x plus 2. That's fine. 3x plus 5 is equal to 2. That's fine. 3x is equal to 5 minus 2. So I think this is where they've gone wrong. They needed to do 2 take away 5. The error is they should have done 2 take away 5, not 5 take away 2. The correct solution is x is equal to negative 1. Question 10. The diagram shows a pentagon ABCDE. Find the area of the pentagon. So I've got this pentagon, but I can see if I split it up, I could make it into a compound shape. I've got a rectangle here, and if I put my head on my right shoulder, I can see this is a trapezium. So I'm going to redraw this one out. That length is 42.5. That length is 34. And the base is 54. So we're going to need to find the height of this trapezium later, but let's first get some marks and find the area of this rectangle. Areas of rectangles, you just multiply the base by the height. So 48 times by 54 is 2592. Let's think about how we would work out the area of this trapezium. So the formula that we need for area of a trapezium is a plus b. So I add up the two parallel sides. I divide that by 2, and I multiply that by the perpendicular height. So I need the height that's going straight up. A and B are 34 add 54 divided by 2, and I need to find this height. So how could we do that? I can see I've got a right angled triangle that's formed just here. So I'm going to draw that over here, and we'll try and find the height. So the diagonal, the hypotenuse, is 42.5. The base of that right angled triangle will be 54 take away 34. So that base will be 20. I'm trying to find one of the shorter sides. So I'm going to do the square root of 42.5 squared, taking away 20 squared, and square root all of that, and that will give me my height. So 42.5 squared, take away 400, which is 20 squared, and that leaves me with 37.5. Now that I know that height of that trapezium, I can substitute it into the formula for area of a trapezium and find that value. So 34 add 54, 50, 80, 88. 88 divided by 2 is 44. So I'm doing 44 times by 37.5, which is 1650. All I need to do now is add both of these together. 1650 add 2592, which gives me 4242. And the units for that would be in centimetres squared. Question 11. Riley and Sam are conducting surveys. They are both given the same list of 12,463 people from which to select their sample. Riley selects every 56th person. Sam selects every 64th person. They both start counting from the first name in the list. Work out how many people will be selected in both surveys. Show you working. So let's first find out how many Riley would select. So Riley would have 12,463 divided by 56. So that'd be 12,463 divided by 56, which gives me 222. I'm going to round this down because he won't have 223, even though this would round to 223. He would only have 222. For Sam, we're going to do exactly the same thing, but this time we're dividing by 64, which gives me 194. So that's Sam 12463 divided by 64. The next thing that we need to consider is that every lowest common multiple of Riley and Sam will be a common person that they have in both of their lists. So we need to remove the duplicates from both of their lists. So let's find out the lowest common multiple of 56 and 64. An easy way to do it using the calculator is using the prime factor function. So I type in 56 and then I press shift and then fact. So that is 2 to the power of 3 multiplied by 7. And I can do the same thing with 64. So 64 is equal to shift fact 2 to the power of 6. Now all I need to do is find the lowest common multiple. To find the lowest common multiple, I need to find the highest power of each unique factor. So from the 2's, the highest power is 6. So I've got 2 to the power of 6 multiplied. There's only a 7 here, so I would multiply that by 7. That will tell me my lowest common multiple. So 2 to the power of 6 multiplied by 7, which gives me 448. And one way you can check this is you can use your calculator. You can type in alpha and the button where it says LCM, and I want 56, comma, so shift and 64. That tells me the lowest common multiple is 448, so I know I've got this one correct. I need to find out where all of the duplicates are, so I'm doing 12463 again, divided by 448. This will tell me the amount of duplicates I have. It's 12463 divided by 448, which is 27. So I'm going to add these two together and then take away 27 from that number. So 222 plus 194 minus my duplicates, 27. Let's see what we get. 222 plus 194 minus 27, which is 389. So altogether, both of them sample 389 people. Question 12. In a computer game, the player can either win or lose. A student thinks that the ratio of probability of winning to the probability of losing is 2 to 3. The student plays 2 games. Use the information to complete the tree diagram. We always know that probabilities will add up to make 1. So the probability of something happening will be 1. So 2x, or 2 multiplied by something, plus 3 multiplied by something will be 1. So 5x will be equal to 1. And if I divide both sides by 5, x would be equal to 0.2. So the probability of winning would be 0.4, and the probability of losing would be 0.6. So the first game, winning, would be 0.4. And second game, winning, would also be 0.4. For losing, that would be 0.6, that would be 0.6, that would be 0.6, and that's a win, so 0.4. Part B, find the probability that the student wins at least one of the 2 games. Because we're looking for winning at least one, so that could be win and lose, or win and win, or it could be lose and win. Instead of finding all of these, what we can do instead is find the probability of lose, and then just take it away from 1. So we're going to do 1 minus the probability of lose, which is 1 take away 0.6 times by 0.6. 0.6 times 0.6 is 0.36. That leaves me with an answer of 0.64. Part C. The student now thinks the ratio of the probability of winning to the probability of losing has changed to 2 to 5. So originally the ratio was 2 to 3, now the ratio is 2 to 5. So the probability of losing is higher. How will this affect my answer to part B? So if we're losing more often, that means the probability of winning will be less. So the answer will be lower as the probability of losing has increased. Question 13. Triangle T and triangle A are drawn on the coordinate grid. Describe fully the single transformation that maps T onto A. So we're going from T to A. I can see it's an enlargement because one is bigger than the other. Let's draw some lines from common points. So this bottom corner is matching up with that bottom corner, so I'm going to join those two up. Then I'm going to do the same again. I can see this top one matches up with that top one, and hopefully if I do the last one, it should join up there. Combining those two, and yep, they both have a common point of intersection. This is my center of enlargement. The first mark I get here is writing enlargement. The second mark I get is the center of enlargement. Where is it at? It's at -1, -1. The final mark I get is for understanding the scale factor. So here we had a length of 1 and it's gone to a length of 2. So the scale factor has doubled. Part B. Describe fully the single transformation that is equivalent to a rotation of 90 degrees clockwise about center 0, 0, followed by a reflection in the y-axis. I'm going to use this shape to help me out with this one. Let's first rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. So you can use tracing paper when you do this, or if you can visualize it, this shape would appear here when you rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. Then it's being reflected in the y-axis. So this is my y-axis. It's being reflected there, so that point would be there. That one would be over here, and that point would be there. So how have we gone from this shape to this shape? I can see if I put a mirror down here in a diagonal line, it would reflect onto there. But what would the equation of that line be? I can see I've got 0, 0, and then I've got 1, -1, and 2, -2. It's quite similar to the y equals x equation, but that would be in that direction. So we want the other one. We want y equals -x. So we would say a reflection in y equals -x. Question 14. The histogram shows the heights of some plants out of a total of 80 plants. So we've got part of the histogram that's been filled out. Complete the histogram to show the plants with heights between 0 and 20 centimeters. So this bit between 0 and 20 is empty, so we need to fill this part out. What's the formula that we normally use for histograms? So it's frequency is equal to the frequency density multiplied by the class width. And that's the formula triangle for it. So frequency is equal to frequency density multiplied by class width. For this first one, the class width is the distance between 20 and 30, so that's 10. And the height of it is telling me the frequency density, so that's 1.7. The frequency of this bar would be 17. The next one is 10 again, multiplied by 1.5, which gives me 15. And the next one, between 40 and 70, there's 30 multiplied by 1.2, which gives me 36. These numbers will tell me how many people I have so far. So 36 plus 15 plus 17, so that's 36 plus 30, 66 plus another 2, which is 68. Right now, I have 68 plants. I need to find 80 plants, so 80 take away 68 gives me 12. This bar needs to be equal to 12 plants. So let's use this formula. We know what the frequency is. The frequency is 12. The frequency density is what we're trying to find out, so I'll label that as x, and the class width between 0 and 20 is 20. X is being multiplied by 20, so divide by 20 on both sides. 12 over 20 is equal to x. Simplify that to give me 6 over 10 is equal to x. So 6/10 is the same as 0.6, so I'm going to draw my line at 0.6, just there. That would be equal to 12 plants. Question 15. P, Q, T, and V are points on the circumference of the circle. TV is the diameter of the circle, so that one. M is a point on PQ, so that's in the middle of PQ, such that PM is equal to MQ. So that's saying that's half of the line and that's half of the line. Complete these sentences to show that the triangle TMP is congruent to triangle TMQ. So this is a triangle proof question. We're trying to prove TMP is exactly the same as TMQ. Side PM is equal to side MQ because it's given to you. So they've already told us that in the question. Angle PMT, so PMT, which is this angle here, is equal to which angle? So that's going to be this angle because VT is bisecting that line PQ. So it's the same as QMT because VT is bisecting. That means it's cutting it in two parts, two equal parts, is bisecting line PQ. Side MT, so this side MT, it's part of the triangle PMT and it's part of the triangle QMT. So we can say it's common in triangles TMP and TMQ. Triangle TMP is congruent to triangle TMQ. So let's see what rules we've used. We've used a side, angle, and a side because side, angle, and side. Question 16. A biologist assumes the population P of birds of an island can be predicted using the formula. So this is the compound interest formula. This is my original number. This is my decimal multiplier. And this is the amount of repetitions that we have, where n is the number of years after the start of 2020. That's when we're starting from. Write down the percentage increase per year that is used in the formula. This 1.042 is my decimal multiplier. So I have 1.042 as what I'm multiplying by every time. That's an increase. So I started this off by doing 1 add something, which gave me that. So that x would be equal to 0.042. That's as a decimal, but we need to change it to a percentage. So we multiply this by 100, which would become 4.2%. Part B, calculate predicted population at the start of 2024. So we're going to use this formula, 3,800 multiplied by 1.042, and this is going to be raised to the power of 4. Because we started in 2020 and we're aiming for 2024, there's 4 years between them, so that's why we raise it to the power of 4. So 3,800 multiplied by 1.042 to the power of 4, which is 4479.8. 4479.8. So I'm going to round this one down because it's not going to reach 4480. Part C, show that the number of birds is predicted to exceed 7,000 during 2034. We're trying to prove that the amount of birds goes over 7,000 during 2034. So let's find the population during 2034, and we'll find the population at 2035. So during this time, it should go over. For this, I'm going to be substituting in n equals 14, and for this one, I'll be substituting in n equals 15, because I started from 2020. So just copy out the formula, 3,800 multiplied by 1.042 to the power of 14, 3,800 times 1.042 to the power of 15. All I need to do is swap this with a 1, so that becomes 6759, 6759, and when it's to the power of 15, it gives me 7,043. So this is telling me that it's gone over 7,000 during 2034. The population has risen above 7,000 during 2034. Part 2. A researcher says that between 2022 and 2030, the percentage increase per year in the population will be 2%. If the researcher is correct, explain how this new information will affect the answer in Part C. In the original part of the question, we worked out that the percentage increase every year was 4.2, but that researcher is saying it's a little bit lower. So that's telling me that the year that it takes will be later, and we won't exceed 7,000 during 2034. So the population increase will be slower, so it will take longer to get to 7,000. Question 17. A sequence is defined by 3un plus 7 and u1 is equal to negative 2. Work out the value of u2 and u3. We know the value of u1 is equal to negative 2. We're going to substitute that value into here, and whatever value we get for that, we'll substitute it in to get u3. So we're doing 3 multiplied by negative 2 plus 7. 3 multiplied by negative 2, negative 6 plus 7 is 1. So we're substituting 1 in now. So 3 multiplied by 1 plus 7. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 7 is 10. That one would be 1 and that one is 10. Part B. Here are the first 4 terms of a quadratic sequence. Sequence has the formula of this, an squared plus b. Find the value of a and find the value of b. We're just finding the quadratic nth term for this question. So let's just rewrite this out. Minus 2, 7, 22 and 43. First step, I'm going to find my second difference. So between them and them is a plus 9. Between those two is plus 15. Those two is plus 21. So between these is 6 and 6. I divide this number by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. This tells me the number before my n squared, so I've got 3n squared. I need to write out the sequence of that. To help me do the sequence of 3n squared quicker, I know my square numbers are 1, 4, 9 and 16. All I need to do is multiply those by 3. So that'll be 3, 12, 27, 48. Now I need to find the difference between my 3n squared and my original sequence. So from there to there, I've taken away 5. From there to there, I've taken away 5. It looks like it's always going to stay the same as taking away 5. So the final sequence will be 3n squared, take away 5. So a is the value of 3, and b is the value of this negative 5. Question 18. Solve this quadratic equation by factorization. So I can see I've not got everything on one side and it's not equal to 0. So that's the first thing I need to do. To move this to the other side, I need to take away 5x and add 3 to both sides. So I'm going to take away 5x there and add 3 there. That'll leave me with 2x squared, take away 11x, negative 24 plus 3 is negative 21 is equal to 0. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 2 times negative 21, so they need to multiply to make negative 42, and they add to give me this negative 11. Let's write out the factors of 42. So 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 would be 14, and I think this one would work. So we need one of them to be negative and one of them to be positive because they're multiplying to become a negative. So I'm going to choose negative 14 and positive 3. I'm going to write 2x in this bracket and this bracket. and I need plus 3 and negative 14. Plus 3 and negative 14. And you might be thinking, if I multiply these two together, it's going to give me 4x squared, but we only want 2x squared, so we need to cancel this one down. I'm going to divide both terms here by 2 because I can see it's a common factor. Leave me with 2x plus 3 and x minus 7. And if you want to check this, 2x times x is 2x squared, and 3 times negative 7 gives me negative 21. So that's equal to 0. I need to solve it. I make this part equal to 0, and I make this part equal to 0. I've got 2x plus 3 equal to 0 and x minus 7 equal to 0. So here x is equal to negative 3 over 2 and x is equal to 7. So negative 3 over 2 or 7. Question 19. The diagram shows the positions of 3 towns A, B and C. I've got A, B and C. I can see it's going to be a bearings question. The bearing of town B from town A is 53. So from A to B, so I start at A and I'm going to B, that angle would be 53. And I can see I've got two parallel lines, so these angles would be co-interior to each other. So this angle would be 180, take away 53, so that's 127. The bearing of town C from town B is 108, so this angle is 108. So these two angles add up to make 235, and I've got angles around a point, so I can take it away from 360, which leaves me with 125. This missing angle is 125. AB is equal to 35, that's on, and BC is equal to 61, so that's on as well. Could also find this angle if I wanted to. That angle would be co-interior, so that one would be 72. Calculate AC. So we're trying to find the length of this. Because we've already gone through the question and we've put some more information on, it makes it a lot easier. So what rule could we use here? I can see I've got two sides and an angle between it. That tells me I'm going to be using my cosine rule. Well, it's a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared. So just like Pythagoras, minus 2bc cos of a. I'm going to substitute all of this in and I'll write it underneath the square root so I don't forget that squared here. The square root of 35 squared plus 61 squared minus 2 lots of 35 multiplied by 61 cos of 125. Just type this into the calculator and you get your final answer. So a is equal to square root of 35 squared plus 61 squared minus 2 lots of 35 times by 61 cos of 125. That leaves me with 85.995. And if I wanted to round it, I could write it 86.00, which is 2 decimal places. This would be in kilometers. Question 20. The diagram shows a circle, center the origin with the tangent to the circle at the point 4, 2. Write down the equation of the circle. The formula that we need for equations of circles is x squared plus y squared is equal to radius squared. And all we need to find is the radius. The radius here has a length of root 20, so we just need to square that. So root 20 multiplied by root 20 would just give us 20. The final formula would be x squared plus y squared is equal to 20. Part B, show that the tangent to the circle at the point 4, 2 has a gradient of negative 2. We're trying to find the gradient of this line. First thing that I'm going to do is find the gradient of this line. Because of my knowledge on perpendicular lines, I can find the gradient of this line also. The formula for gradient is a change in y divided by the change in x. And gradient we refer to as m. So that coordinate is 0, 0, so we're doing 2 take away 0, which is 2, and 4 take away 0, which is 4, which simplifies to 1/2, so we know the gradient of this line is 1/2. I know that when I have a perpendicular line, the gradient of that line will be the inverse reciprocal of that. So this one would be negative 2, so I've flipped that and I've changed the sign to become negative 2. So the first gradient was 1/2, the second gradient would be negative 2. And the way that you can prove this is 1/2 multiplied by negative 2 would be negative 1. Now part 2, find the equation of the tangent to the circle at point 4, 2. Now that we know the gradient and we know a point that it goes through, we can find what the equation is. The general form for an equation of a line is y equals mx plus c. And we already have x and we have y and we have m, which is negative 2. Let's substitute those in and we can find c, which is the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. Y is equal to 2. M is equal to negative 2, x is 4, and we're trying to find c. So 2 is equal to negative 8 plus c, c is equal to 10. I know my gradient and I know my y-intercept, so I can write the final equation. I substitute both of those values into here. So y is equal to negative 2x plus 10. You could write it as 10 minus 2x, both would be fine. Question 21, solve this equation. I can see I'm going to be using a lot of my index rules here. Before I think about them, I'm just going to try and move all of my x's to one side and try and keep this 5 on its own. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides by this x to the power of 3/4. So I've got x to the negative 1 over 6 multiplied by x to the 3/4 is equal to 5x to the 1/3. Now I'm going to divide both sides by x to the 1/3 to get this 5 on its own. So that will be 5, and then this will be divided by x to the 1/3. There's two rules that we need to remember here. When we're multiplying and we have the same base, we add them together, and if we're dividing and we have the same base, we take them away. So what I'm really doing is negative 1/6 plus 3/4 take away 1/3. So I'm going to put this into my calculator to save me some time. So I've got negative 1/6 plus 3/4 minus 1/3, which is 1/4. So I've got x to the power of 1/4 is equal to 5. To get x on its own, I need to find the fourth power of both sides. So I'm going to raise this to the power of 4 to leave me with x is equal to 5 to the power of 4. So you might know this already, or if you don't know it, you can type it on your calculator. 5 to the power of 4, which is 625. Question 22. You are given this identity. Find the value of A and find the value of B. Show each step in your working. All we're trying to do here is simplify this left-hand side so it looks something like this side, and we're trying to find that value and that value. Because I can see a root 18 here and I can see a root 18 here, let's first simplify those. You can just type this into your calculator, or if you know your square numbers and you know how to simplify surds, you can simplify it yourself. So the largest square number that goes into 18 would be 9, so that'd be root 9 root 2. That would simplify to 3 root 2. Let's rewrite this, replacing these root 18s with 3 root 2. So I've got 2 take away 3 multiplied by 3 root 2 over 3 root 2 plus 4. Let's expand this top bracket out. So I've got 2, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 root 2. That's over 3 root 2 plus 4. If we take a look at this, there's no fraction, so that means we need to remove this surd from the bottom and hopefully it will simplify. To do this, we rationalize the denominator, and that means I need to multiply by 3 root 2 take away 4 on the bottom and 3 root 2 take away 4 on the top as well. Let's expand this top one out. I've got 2 times by 3 root 2. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 root 2. 2 times by negative 4 is negative 8. And negative 9 times by 3 is negative 27. And root 2 times root 2 is 2. So it's negative 7 times by 2, which is negative 54. Then negative 9 root 2 times negative 4 is positive 36 root 2. That's that top one done. We need to do this bottom one. 3 root 2 times 3 root 2. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times by root 2 times by root 2. That gives me 9 times 2, which is 18. 3 root 2 times negative 4 is negative 12 root 2. 4 times by 3 root 2 gives me plus 12 root 2. And 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. See that this bit will cancel out with that bit. So that's what we're trying to achieve. Let's just simplify this top bit. We're collecting like terms now. I've got 6 root 2 plus 36 root 2, which gives me 42 root 2. Negative 8 take away 54, which is minus 62. That's over 18 take away 16, which is 2. I just need to divide this by 2 and divide this by 2. 42 divided by 2 is 21 root 2. 62 divided by 2 is 31, so take away 31. Here A is going to equal 21 and B will equal negative 31. That's the end of the questions for today. I'd recommend you go through all of them and write down the topics that you struggle with before you attempt another past paper. Feel free to check out my channel for other papers, including the ones from this year's. I'll see you soon.